You're listening to Breaking New Ground. In this podcast, we provide thought-provoking conversations for those looking to begin or advance their entrepreneurial real estate goals.
Together, we'll venture into the world of commercial real estate with entrepreneurs who challenge the status quo, building innovative paths with bold approaches.
We're your hosts. I'm John Pugh, a real estate developer and investor.
And I'm Rachel Walters, a real estate marketing expert. Throughout our episodes, we'll bring in real estate trailblazers, creating a space for inspiring conversations surrounding commercial real estate.
Pugh Management is proud to sponsor the podcast Breaking New Ground. Pugh Management is a premier developer for mixed-use, multifamily, and industrial properties. We love to develop places to live, work, and play. Pugh Management partners with family offices and institutional investors on projects in New England and Central Florida. Check us out online at pughmgmt.com.
We are very excited to have Mandi Wedin on, and Mandi is the founder and CEO of Feroce Real Estate Advisors. Mandi, can you please give us a little bit about your background and bio? And thank you so much again for joining.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. It's so nice to see you. This is going to be fun. Sure. So, Mandi Wedin, Feroce Real Estate Advisors. I have been in the real estate investment business since I started as an intern right out of undergrad.
Wow.
And spent 20 plus years running big billion-dollar real estate portfolios across the country of office buildings and industrial buildings and apartment projects and retail. And had the opportunity to work at firms where we saw the opportunity where there was a gap, where there was some change that was happening. And in that space, we could go develop, redevelop, or release something and make money for our investors and our stakeholders. And now that's what I do with Feroce. We work with the forward-thinking real estate companies to position their portfolios, to position their teams, to take advantage of the disruption, to create value out of the change. And our real estate industry is experiencing a lot of change right now. So we work at that intersection of real estate investment, sustainability, and technology. And we help our clients get to the next level, whether it's they want to take it from friends and family investing to a fund, or they need to grow their asset management team because they're pivoting. They need sustainability roadmap work. That's a good amount of work we do. They're piloting and they want to move from just piloting technology to actually deploying and working with their teams on the ground at the properties for that. So that's an example of some of our projects.
Yes, that is a huge role and amazing. And, you know, there are a lot of new people coming into the industry and a lot of new technologies. And so it must be very satisfying for people who are hiring you because you're a very trusted advisor. Like you are not just saying, this is the change, why aren't you doing it? You've said, I've lived through these changes. I see what's coming. I understand where you've been. So I really love in your wording and your website and your bio that you're a translator. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about that, because it's a huge role. And whenever, at least I know for myself, whenever I think, oh, it's okay, they've got it, like there's still a lot more work. So I can imagine your work is cut out for you.
It's true. So I had the great experience at one of the firms I worked with. I spent 2 years on the fundraising, the client relations investor side. And so I would go talk to existing investors, which were small pension funds, big pension funds, people who had real estate finance investing experience, people who didn't, wide range of audience members. And I was given advice early on, which was really appreciated, that don't use your real estate speak with the investors, because some of them might get it, but most of them won't, and you will have lost your audience immediately. And so sometimes I would go into the presentation, whether it was a pitch or just an investment update, and I would say, okay, so if I use real estate jargon, tell me, because I need to know that. And every time I do, I'm going to make, for everyone I do, I'll make a $5 donation to your favorite charity. So I learned, right, that We all speak slightly different languages in our industries and in our work, and sometimes they're big gaps, and it's not helpful. So I talk a lot about, particularly with prop tech teams, groups that when I sit on an advisory board or when I'm helping them with how do we engage with the commercial real estate, the institutional market, just talk about the language and know who your audience is. If you're meeting with the CFO, it's very focused on returns, capital investment. If you're meeting with the HR team, it should appropriately be very focused on their people and their talent and their retention. So that's part of the translation experience, is like, who are you talking to and what's important to them?
That's amazing. Yeah, it's very clear when you say it that way, but unless you're there doing it and talking to both sides, a lot of times you forget, right? It's very, very easy to stay in one industry or one, language and get very caught up in that until you realize people aren't following you.
Yeah.
So I really like that, you're talking about a lot of changes, right? So it's not just new technology or ESG, which is also what you cover, ESGR. But you're also looking at consumer demographics and a lot, because there's been so much change in office.
Mm-hmm.
So how, if you want to talk about maybe some of the other, not big name topics, but some of the other topics of change that you're really helping organizations with.
Sure. So I can't believe we're some minutes in and I haven't even talked about interest rates and capital markets. That's really been a huge challenge for our industry to move through that. And we're still moving through it. Change in interest rates, capital markets, what that looks like. The way that I talk about some of this from a capital markets perspective, from a sustainability and technology perspective, is I talk about the risk of ignoring. So what's the change that's happening around you, and you're either ignoring it because you don't think it applies to you, or it exists, but you don't have any tools to address it right now. You don't have any money and you have other problems to solve, or you're ignoring it because you just don't think it's important. People are across all that spectrum. But when I think about it from an investment perspective, we're protecting the value of the asset and its performance for the user, whether that's a human is an office or an apartment or a company because it's manufacturing for them. So you protect that value, which means you protect the exit, the sale, and the liquidity of it. Can you go refinance it? Can you recap it? And if you're not paying attention to sustainability requirements and what the EU regulations are requiring, the European Union's requiring for disclosures, or you're not paying attention to technology requirements or just relevance, then you're losing that value protection and you're risking your exit and your liquidity. So we talk about a lot of little things that are happening in the world today, and some really big things that are impacting that exit, that liquidity. And so I think it's not just one. For some cases, it can just be one, right? Your debt is maturing. You don't have the money. The appraisal's not going to cover it. That is one existential issue for that investment. But if you have an operating investment that's continuing, it's a lot of little things. And so we talk about how to identify which is most material and which is most attainable to fix now. And then you build a roadmap for what's coming. And how you understand what the materiality, what's important. I say all the time, when you walk into a building, an office building or wherever you work, and it's not connected to your phone somehow, you could book a conference room or you need to report some sort of maintenance thing. If it's not connected to your phone at all, to anyone who has graduated from college or high school in the last 10 years, that's hard to imagine, because everything in all of their lived experience has always been something they could access through a phone, is connected to a phone. So you just knocked the relevance of that building or that space right out of the picture by not being connected somehow through a mobile device.
Yes, that's a huge point, of course, that a lot of people are not even thinking on the ground level, right? At that, yeah, and it makes a big difference. So when companies hire you, like how does it usually start? Like where is your are people bringing you in to do audits? Are they starting like maybe with, like you said, one roadmap? Like how does your usual path with starting to, like if someone in our audience wanted to work with you, like what's your usual path for that?
It's hard to say there's a usual path, but usually it's somebody who it's a leader in the firm who knows they need something done. Like it's a must do. Now we need it, and they don't have it internally. They've already checked, right, or they don't have the solution internally, or that resource is already very busy with other things. So I recently finished up a long-term engagement with a private equity shop who was launching a new fund, a renewable energy fund. So putting on-site renewables on top of their existing portfolios that the rest of the firm owned and for others. And they had some internal resources with this expertise, but they didn't have people who had my expertise in running fund operations and understanding solar and engaging with banks and lenders on how to support getting approval from third-party stakeholders, as well as the sustainability requirement, because now that's a requirement for their money. All those things, right? They didn't have that. So it was through word of mouth. Someone said, oh, you should talk to Feroce. And so that's what happened. Another piece of my business is fractional asset management, where I sit in the seat of head of asset management, or I sit in a seat, that seat to help build their asset management function and help them go hire someone. So we build the foundation, get things set up, and then find the person who's going to run that team.
Yeah.
And that is someone who's worked with me before in that role, who will come and say, okay, we're ready for this now. Or we're thinking about this. We want to do it next year. What's the capacity? So
that's a really good example for our audience, because a lot of people are starting their own development companies, and as they grow, right, like that's another piece of, I know the development piece, I know the investing, the fundraising, the building, but the hiring, getting the right people, setting up an entire asset management company as you grow, or division as you grow. So that's right. Really helpful. Thank you for that example. And then can you talk a little bit more about, definitely we could talk all day about ESGR. There's a lot to cover, but it's again, just starting from the beginning, when people hire you to come to you and say, we don't know what we're doing. There's a lot going on. We don't have someone on our team dedicated to this. Like, how do they start with you?
Yeah. So there's in the sort of real estate investment world, there's the early movers who have said, okay, we're going to set goals about reducing our carbon, reducing our waste, improving our tenant experience. They've set a series of goals. The next step, once you've set those goals, those big targets, right? Like, we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. We're going to reduce our energy usage by half by 2030. Those are some examples of the goals that organizations make. Then they have to set a baseline, which is, what are we doing now? Like, what's happening in our portfolio now? And for some organizations, some investors, you're maybe 3 or 4 levels removed from the property, because you're an investor in partnership in JV with a sponsor, who's then has third-party property management, who then outsources the facilities or HVAC. So you have a decent amount of layers to get through. So it's not easy to go set your baseline. So if an organization is at a point where they were like, okay, we set a target, and you set targets because your investors say, if you want to keep our money, we need you to understand the risks and meet this goal. So meet this goal, and the next step is understand the risks. Or they set a target because they have a large tenant, a large user who says, this is our target. We said we were going to be, like Google says, we're going to be carbon zero by 2030. Okay, if you want to lease to Google, you need to meet the same standards so that you support their goal as a real estate, because then you're part of their supply chain, right? So a lot of my work can be in that baseline. Like, how do we collect information to build the baseline? And then we identify the hot spots, right? Which buildings have the largest footprint? Which buildings have the largest water usage, whatever the case might be? Which buildings have a tenant where we really want to renew them, and this is important to them. So we're going to go get this work done so we can renew them and do that work. And the next set of work is how do we actually go do it, right? So a good number of my clients, we work on talking through how do you actually deploy this down to the property level now? Like, you need your building engineers to understand your goals and how their work supports those. And you need to be a resource to them, and you need them to make these decisions. My example is air handling units. So if an air handling unit breaks, building engineering team, property team, they want to fix it as they should, right? Because they're sort of definitely measured on how tenants are happy, how tenants experience their building, how they manage to their expense budget, how they keep the systems operating. So they want to repair that or replace that as quickly as possible, which sometimes means replacing like for like. Well, today, in many instances, a like for like, buying essentially just the same piece of equipment, won't support an organization's overall decarbonization goal, whatever that goal might be, whatever year they set it for. But that like for like won't support that decarbonization plan. So if the building team doesn't even know that there's a decarbonization plan in the works or communicated, they won't know how to ask the question. And they're doing their job by just replacing like for like, right? That's what we've asked of them and they've trained to do. But now you've just spent thousands of dollars that you probably have to spend again to meet that goal potentially. So it's that work of setting your baseline, understanding what needs to be done. And then the next set of work can be, how do we make this happen? How do we operationalize this at the property and in the property?
Yeah. So there obviously is a lot of change management with this, a lot of communication, a lot of, like you said, baseline, goals, processes. So where does technology start to fit in, with these goals and like kind of goes a little bit parallel with sustainability?
Yeah. So I regularly say a bigger Excel spreadsheet is not going to solve it for this. Maybe for a small project, smaller building, absolutely. But for bigger buildings,
cry if you say that.
You can't do it with Excel and just throwing a few more humans at it. Not for very long, right? Because it just gets you collect more data, analyze more data. Soon it's you've exceeded the capabilities. So, and the good news is there are technology solutions out there. The frustrating thing for a lot of owners and operators is it's a very fragmented market. There are lots and lots of solutions out there. And how do you figure out which one is best for your project? And we all think our project is special and a snowflake. So we like to say, well, if you can't do that, could you fix that? So then you're asking your tech providers to do bespoke solutions, which sometimes they'll do if you're a really big owner. But some of the work that is really helpful in our industry today is identifying the top 5 solutions and then just doing that work of which of them solves our problem the most. So as an owner, you first need to understand your problem. Then you understand who the universe of solutions providers are and which one gets you 80% of the way there, 90% of the way there. We don't need to solve for 100%. If we can get 80 to 90, then Excel could be maybe a solution, or there are other ways to get there. And it's fast moving, so it's fragmented. Owners don't always know what their problem is that needs to be solved, and it's very fast moving. There's a lot of change happening. So it can be frustrating for owners who say, okay, we're going to go look at it. So they look at it, they get distracted or something else happens. They need to put it on pause. They go back a year later. They need to start the process maybe not from zero again, but they have to start over because so much has happened. So that is causing some frustration on the technology service provider side and on the owner side. But a lot of that is once you've made a decision, then you have to execute the change management within your own organization to use that tool. And that's a longer term investment. And it usually requires different skills than just comparing 5 solutions and picking one, right? Yeah. So that's part of our next evolution of how do we deploy technology.
Yes. I mean, the points you've made, even though they only took a couple minutes, are just so deep and very, very big. And I think only people who are in the middle can see this huge, huge gap where nobody is completely at fault, but everyone could be working together better. So yeah. I'm very thankful, and I'm sure the industry is, for people like you who understand both sides and see, like you said, you can't have bespoke, these aren't consultants, so you can't have bespoke technology. But also there's a lot of people in technology that maybe don't understand the problems and are maybe, let's not say overselling, but don't really understand the day-to-day or, what the problem is. And so there is this very frustrating gap because, both of us, and John included, really want to see the commercial real estate industry innovate, start to adopt technology. But when both sides are not making that helpful, people like you are extremely, extremely valuable. And, a thing too is, when I brought up trusted advisor, I feel like a lot of technology companies don't understand that. And it just burns so much of a bigger bridge. It's not just about your individual company, not fitting in to this, solution, or that your company, goes under. But these are just all things that start to make owners so much more cautious and say, I'm not going to get bitten again, right? Or I'm going to just wait. And so when there's someone like you who has been in the industry, who has worked on huge projects, been around all the different sides, who can tell people that you've vetted these out, and again, let's set expectations. You're not selling somebody a dream. You're selling them, let's get to 90%. Let's look at the solution. So, I mean, this is such a huge, huge topic, and I'm so happy that you're involved. But now, like you said, okay, there's already that huge, huge, huge part, a very big process to get everybody on board and everyone working together when people have other priorities and people are very busy. But now the next big step is, okay, we've decided, right? And you said very quickly in your bio, getting past the pilot, starting to go through the process of onboarding and, teaching the different teams. So how do you work in that regard? Because that's also, more work.
So pilot is the entryway, right? The pilot from the owner's side. I'm going to pilot a project. That's the entry into, and it's possibly consensus building internally of, we have a problem, we think we found the solution, we want to try it. And that's sort of setting the team up for, we want to use technology to help solve this problem. The mindset from a pilot to a deployment is, okay, we found the solution. Now we have to go change the way something works, change the way humans behave, and change the way you do your work. So then it literally does, in my mind, becomes a 80-20, 80% change management project, 20% technology, hardware installation, right? Now it's just people and process focused. And so you start very clearly work with organizations to start. We define the why. It's called your North Star. Why are we doing this? It's because we need to meet some standard, or because this is how our building is going to be a high-performing building that will attract tenants, maintain this. There's all sorts of what your why can be all sorts of things. But it very clearly needs to be defined. And then that's communicated and worked with across the entire team. So define your North Star, your why. And then the second is get your team on board. And I have the visual, the analogy of get everybody in the same boat, get them off the dock and into the boat with oars in their hands so you can start rowing in the right direction. And so it's that process of, we need, if it's a portfolio, you need all the portfolio and asset management team members, you need their analyst and associate team members, you need the property management team, you need the building engineer team, and then you need the vendors, the contract providers. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of work, right? But you need to get them all on the same page, in the same boat, so they know where they're going. And then you communicate. I say you just communicate. When you think you're communicating too much, you're probably communicating just enough. But what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then how people are connected to that. Like, I talk about building engineers. We talked about the air handling unit example. If they don't understand how their decisions are connected to that decarbonization goal, or buying a unit that doesn't interface with the BMS system or whatever your technology you're installing, if they don't know, they can't participate, be helpful. But if they do know, right, then they know how their decision, their job is connected to the goal. So you need to connect those dots and educate them, right? Like training and education. We didn't just pop up overnight and be like, oh, we understand how this works. Everybody in our industry now knows what the value of technology is, or why we have building performance standards that we have to measure our energy usage and improve. No, all of this is learned. So we have to actually go and do the teaching. And then I liken it to a mountain climb. It's a long haul, and you need to set the long goal, but milestones along the way, so the team and everybody understands that they're making progress. And your first travel to base camp maybe isn't that difficult, but it requires a lot of equipment. Well, the next two pieces up, right? The next two stages require pieces of equipment, and they're very intense. But you've successfully completed the mountain climb when you've gotten your whole team to the summit and safely back down. So you have to plan for that whole long haul. And that, that takes a lot of energy and long thinking and commitment that we're not necessarily used to in the real estate world, right? For some instances, we're going to build it and then we're going to sell it. Or we're going to build it, we're going to finance it, and someone else is going to run it, and we're going to be a minority partner, right? There's all different ways that we engage with this, but it's not always very active for year after year after year.
Yes, I agree. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of different changes coming, being hit at CRE. How do you keep up with things? I know you must not sleep, but I know you go to a lot of conferences and belong to so many organizations. So first question. But second, obviously we encourage everyone to hire you, but also, like you said, these are things you have to learn, and whether it's courses or, sitting through panels or webinars. So also, if you have any advice for people to get started and to expand their knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm lucky. I'm naturally curious. I'm always asking why or what's this, that leads me to do the work that I do, like find a better way. But first I learn a lot, read a lot. So I would say, yes, I just do a good amount of reading, participate in organizations where I can learn, where I'm not just going into a room where I'm the expert. I love those rooms, don't get me wrong, but I really need to be in the rooms where I'm an expert in one piece, or I bring my experience, but surrounded by others who bring their experience and their expertise so that I can learn from them. And that's partly because as a portfolio manager, I liken it to being the orchestra conductor. I'm not the one playing the tuba and the piano and the cello, but I probably play a couple instruments, but I do know when all of the others need to come in and how to get them in so that we get to the end result. So it's asking questions and learning from people is how I do it. And I also use a lot of resources online, like classes, courses through the big universities, all sorts of industry organizations offer courses or seminars. And I really enjoy taking those. I've used a few of those in the this last year on learning about AI and the application of AI, like reality of application of AI to the built environment and different things like that. So take advantage of those. Those are really valuable. And I read a lot of books and other things, but really it's those seminars or the events that associations and organizations put on that give you the real-time information, which is also valuable because we are changing at a really rapid pace.
Yes. And we had this conversation before we started recording. So we would love to have you back on to really dive into a topic. Like, your breadth of knowledge is so wide that I don't even feel like touching something is going to give it justice. So I'd really like to have you back on to, talk about a topic in ESGR, talk about a topic in prop tech or change management, or, even a specific office problem or investment problem. So that we will have to have people tune back in for. But I do want to ask you this question because a lot of people right now are rethinking their careers. And we do have a lot of entrepreneurs who have maybe lived the life that you have in the past. And now with all these changes are, reconsidering their careers or making a pivot. So is there anything that you would like to share about, this big pivot from, working with these companies to going out on your own? And if you have any advice about like the entrepreneurial journey in commercial real estate?
Sure. Okay, let's see. Well, the first note is yes, it's scary, and yes, you can do it. I was never the person who said, oh yeah, I want to go start my own business and run a consulting organization. I mean, yes, it was within the realms of possibility, but that wasn't a big driver. But that's what happened with COVID, right? That I was providing all of this guidance and advice, and we were on phone calls with people I had worked with and different teams. And a friend said, what you're doing is called consulting. Go get paid for it. And I said, okay, thank you. I needed that. So yes, it's scary. Yes, you can do it. And yes, you need a friend to be like, hey, are you thinking about this? The thing that I try really hard to pay attention to is my most limited resource is my time, and where I want to put my time, be thoughtful about where I'm dedicating time, and to where I can outsource or delegate tasks that I can, like accounting or invoicing or billing, right? Can that be all technology, or does it also need a human, right? When I host webinars, right? I'm not the expert at the back end and the technology and the setup and all of that, but I can work with someone who is, right? And then that time that I'm saving, I'm using elsewhere and dedicating elsewhere. So it's being very mindful of your time and where you're dedicating. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you need to be the one doing it. For some things, yes, it's very clearly that your clients are hiring you for X, or you're the person who should be on stage for this conversation. There are very clear lines, but where you think you can delegate, do it. And be ruthless with yourself about, okay, do I need to do that again? Should I put my time somewhere else?
Yeah, that is really great advice. So we have some prop tech companies and founders who are, who've been on the podcast and who are listeners, and then investors and developers. If they want to work with you, what's the best way to get started?
Sure. So you can find me at feroce.us. You can find me on LinkedIn. You're happy to send me an email. We'll drop it in the information for the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
just reach out. I participate in different prop tech organizations and other things, so we may have already crossed paths. Is what I say to people. Like we could have been in the same room.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the community is growing, but definitely a lot of overlap. And then one last question. What are you excited about for 2025? And it can be a topic, it could be something in commercial real estate, it could be the industry. There's no rules.
Okay, I will definitely answer that, and I'm going to ask that back to you.
Okay.
So let's see. What am I excited about for 2025? So in the real estate investment world, I'm happy to see interest rates stabilized. It might move up and down a little bit, right? But we're not on the super upswing or the super downswing. That's my prediction, for whatever it's worth, for 2025. And so the real estate industry, capital markets, we like that, right? We like some level of certainty about where interest rates will be, where the Fed Reserve rate will be, where interest rates will be. So I'm looking forward to that. Personally, my family, we're going to do some fun traveling in 2025. So we have middle school kids in our house. So they're fun to be around and fun to travel with. So that's what I'm looking forward to. How about you?
Yeah, so I have a people answer, not a industry answer. I'm very excited to see where people are starting to search and where they're starting to find their journey and the new interesting things that are coming out of that. So, a lot of people, myself included, trying a podcast, right? Like, going to new things, learning new skills, looking at new opportunities. And so we've had some of those people on the podcast. And so seeing where people are pivoting to, like what commercial real estate brokers are leaving but technologies they're creating, what new opportunities, right? Like, I mean, it's great. We need asset managers, we need developers. But in 2025, I think we'll start to see more of the entrepreneurial work that's moving the industry forward that people have been doing with their heads down behind the scenes in 2024. And so I'm really just hoping, that growth continues. And then, hopefully 5 years, 10 years from now, we start to say, oh yeah, look at that big technology company or innovation, or why were we not doing things this way? So, that's what I'm focused on right now, is these individual stories of innovation and growth and the people like you that are really like moving that along.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And from your podcast interviews, like what are a couple of moments or experiences you've had that have left a strong impression with you?
So we've had an entrepreneur just admit how hard it is and how hard it is, making the decision of your time and how much money it is. And just our producer at the end of it was just like, wow. So that was amazing. I think just also, and, I know you do a lot with DEI, and when you hear people who cannot find their place in commercial real estate, or, feel, move into maybe a different company and something happens. And so to be around people who are all so smart and brilliant, and even John, who is, an ex-basketball player, has amazing credentials, and to hear just how people sometimes don't fit in the industry, but like don't give up. It's been really inspiring in that, because sometimes if you, just go into the wrong opportunity, or, if you were in a company or, if you felt like the industry is never changing and it's not keeping up, and where's my place in this? Or if you were an early innovator, maybe screaming and nobody was listening. So just bringing those stories out to make people feel less alone. And, I do feel really bad when I, talk to people who should be looking at retiring, or who have done amazing things and made their companies a lot of money, and who have been let go and are now, where do I go my commercial real estate career? when you look at brokers or office brokers who are struggling. So all of that, like bringing out those stories has been to me like what is most interesting. And I don't know if you're seeing this a lot, but we have had a couple people on who, and I hope to see more of it, of people like yourself, you know, veterans in commercial real estate, whatever part of the industry they're in, and who are starting to create their own technology companies or innovations or consultancies. And it's just really great to see, because sometimes there's just the outside innovators. You know, there's some really amazing people, of course, but there are some that come in without that knowledge. And to see people say, like, I saw this gap, or I saw this opportunity, or I didn't really understand why we've always been doing it this way. So I really hope to see, unfortunately, they may be forced to right now, but it is great to see a lot of people looking at rethinking their career, rethinking commercial real estate and how things are done, and coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, I think that's how our industry is going to remain relevant and succeed going forward, is taking the opportunity to innovate, whether it's forced on us or we see it as an opportunity, right? And in order to do that well, in order to actually innovate, we need to have more people at the table with different perspectives, right? I talk about widening our field of vision, right? This is mine right here. But if you and I stand back to back, then we have a full 360. That is how we're going to solve our way through a lot of these problems. And some of the problems we face today in commercial real estate are existential, right? Like for the office market, right? It's going to be a new way in 10 years. It's a new way already, but 10 years from now, it'll be drastically different than what it was even a couple of years ago. So that finding our way through and maintaining relevance and performance and being a part of the solution instead of just being the problem is going to require more people at the table with different perspectives, and people who are saying, oh, I love your thought about real estate people who are like, I see a problem, I know how to solve it, I'm going to go do that, right? I'm just going to go try it. Mm-hmm. And I tell myself this all the time, but I work on it really hard in change management with our clients, is a failure isn't the end of the story. It is a chapter. How you move forward, how you learn from that, and how you apply it to your next effort, whether it's a pilot or a deployment, that's where it's valuable. And it's super valuable, right? Because now you have more knowledge than you did before you even tried it or took the risk. But in real estate, we like to take risks that we know very well, and we don't like to take these other risks. And right now, these other risks aren't being quantified. They are not ignorable any longer, and we have to start taking them. And we manage risk all the time. This is what we do. We make money out of managing risk. So let's go do it. Yes,
with trusted advisors like Mandi. There's my plug for you. But yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said. It's a team effort. We need a lot of different perspective, people from different parts. A lot of those entrepreneurs, you know, are in commercial real estate, go with teams, you know, that have been doing technology in a different industry for so long. And I love those partnerships. And so it's great. And thank you so much for everything you do for the industry, seriously. And also thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was lovely having you on.
This was super fun. Thank you.
We want to hear your thoughts and feedback on today's episode, and what topics you would like us to discuss in future episodes.
Follow us on Spotify to be notified when our next episode is live. To connect with John and I, follow us on LinkedIn.
Thanks for joining us today on Breaking New Ground.